we all mutually agree that like the Gray jokes, like the people downplaying Gray like it's over, we're done with it. It's over. Gray proved that that's nonsense and that he has gone completely into what Mishima said, that he is equal to Natsu. It, I think it was just a matter of time. There was a whole funny thing in like the structure. I think I can't tell if Mishima did it on accident or did it on purpose. Of him, like Gray had like the opposite of what Natsu had in early Fairy Tail for character stuff. What Gray's was, he was getting character stuff and he was getting power level stuff last. Everybody else seemed to be getting more kind of, you know, move set, power, cool ability additions and advancements other than Gray. Because throughout 100 Years Quest, Gray has been getting like all his encounters, he wins through some form of advancement in a different area of his powers. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to I'm going to do larger scale dynamic ice make with, you know, and then with invul, because I think invul is just important to mention. You copy, being able to copy and adapt to somebody's ice, and then start using that whole like crazy encounter. Going up into, you know, like with Hien being able to copy the ability and technique of not like somebody that is made a, oh, this is a fake person that is using, you know, something with ice, and then Gray's like, I'll make a technique of that. No, this is an illusion. So it's, he doesn't even have to like see like how the magic is dispensed or anything. He can just, yeah, if I see it in any way, shape, or form, or imagine neighbors, I can imagine it in any way, shape, or form, I can implement it into ice if he understands it. So you see a lot more of that throughout this fight, and Gray has been advancing his powers into little bits. And in say like with Sai, he has got turned into Juvia, so he was able to experience a magic that was similar to ice magic, but it's a little different in technique because it's in the same branch, you know, ice and water, in the same general kind of, I would assume, feeling of how you would use it, but it just in differences. Like an important display was when Gray tried to use water make hammer, and he was thinking more of just, oh yeah, the normal way you summon ice, it's going to be compact, it's going to be heavy, but it's like you just drop water generally. It's just going to be you're putting, you know, this a big body of water right on top of him. You're not putting the force into it because the force doesn't generate naturally. With ice, you just form the ice and it's going to, bam, wait. With water, you have to condense it and then shape it, and then to do it a little bit differently than how ice works. So he was able to do that, plus feeling like the moisture in the atmosphere. And then once he turned into Natsu, you know, the fight was more so for Lucy being turned into Brandish, but Gray was able to get a hold of fire and using fire make magic way better than how Natsu was doing, using an idea of ice dragon slam magic. He was like doing stuff like putting ice out of his mouth, like just barely, because he was kind of confused on it. Gray got way more so in the zone. He wasn't perfect with it, but you can clearly see that Gray was able to grasp it at a much faster rate than Natsu, because he was able to, like, okay, what does Natsu do? What do I understand about fire magic? What is it like to ice magic, and then implement it? Because that's another thing, he didn't struggle as much learning the basics of fire make magic, and that's something to really mention with turning into Natsu as he did with Juvia. And I think that's because he had experienced a little bit. He was able to just be like, okay, how do I go about this? There's the shock, obviously, initially, that you're like, okay, crap, because it's going to be harder when you're somebody that is the opposite of you rather than somebody that uses a power that is adjacent to you. And on top of that, like, there's a little bit of difference in how like Natsu and Juvia have for closeness to Gray. Natsu and Gray have known each other longer and they have their whole rivalry, but Juvia and Gray have a much closer kind of, you know, not in direct ship, but like the building of it from the between Tartaros and Alvarez, and obviously having the whole thing with Geese and whatnot and Silver. That's going to build a different closeness that obviously Natsu and Gray don't have. So it's like you have this whole setup to where he is using you know, either stuff from like a general idea of it, or it's like with Juvia, he trained a bit with her and it would be easier to grasp, but because of he got in this situation where he was forced to adapt and figure it out. I think it just made it way easier for and he got turned into Natsu before for a short period of time. It wasn't the same thing as like when he did it with Lucy and him fighting Sai and Kotetsu and oh my god, and Genai. I don't want to forget Genai's name because I wish we got a little bit more of Duke's dolls because I thought that they were really cool just in general, but also I thought they were funny that they could just be these really weird looking characters. I'm hoping at some point they come back. I would love to see more of them, but either way, Gray in this chapter is showing what he's doing. More so is because with Maker Magic is different than how Dragon Slayer magic is, or in Gray's case, Devil Slayer magic is. Because, and I gotta do a video on this soon. I'll probably do a video on this in the next couple weeks. With Dragon Slaying magic, say, just as a very condensed, quick explanation, when you had, say, like first generation and second generation, with first generation, you are learning the magic how you would learn any normal magic. You are figuring out the basics, figuring out how to use your magic to align with, you know, whatever wavelengths there are of like converting the natural magic in your body into a specific type of magic and how to do it. Whereas with second gen, you are taking a Lacrima and implanting it directly into your body or embedding it into your body. So it would be like, if you just get the powers, you are going to be kind of learning it from scratch versus someone who gained the ability from learning how to use it. It would just be a complete and total, like, if you were a character that was able to just naturally, through instinct, gain kind of a very, like a very almost kind of second nature grasp on using this, you know, dragon adapting magic, it'd be a different thing. I don't imagine that everyone's going to be kind of in that scenario. Like, you know, Natsu is somebody, I feel like if Natsu wasn't a first gen, he was a second gen instead, he would probably be fine. I think he just has the personality for it. But generally, it's just a foundationally different way that, like, how your powers go. But with Gray, with Devil Slaying magic, like, he could have, like, progressed his form or made cold or ice. But what he didn't do is just like, oh yeah, well, I'm just going to do a faster or colder ice, you know, ice demon 0 something something attack. What Gray did was Gray took the idea that he was going off of where he froze the air. Because you have to think about like what he did the last couple chapters. And there's let me bring up a couple panels. With, oh, hang on. Let me put this back over here. So one thing to really to kind of look at, if I can get, I want to get back to where this one is ahead. I don't know why this one is behind where I need it to be. There we go. If you look at these panels, so Gray is not using ice. When we saw in the last chapter, Gray made the ice flames, and he did it directly through first making the ice, like, ice-shaped flames, or sorry, flame-shaped ice, and then it kind of condenses and it slowly looks more like, you know, look way more refined and less kind of clear-cut, and then it just becomes blue ice flames. And then after that, he freezes the air. And we see in this chapter, when Vierz is trying to change the air into something else, what Gray is doing is Gray is not, like, changing the ice into something else. Gray isn't using ice. Gray is just using the cold, and he's applying the idea of just freezing to his other magic. So when there's things like he's not using ice, he's just bringing the raw cold around him. And when he's like saying like, oh, he combined it with Devil Slayer magic, Gray just directly says this. And this is something that's really important. You have to understand the mechanics. And that's one of the things, I need to do some videos just on the mechanics of a lot of the abilities, because that's something in Fairy Tail that I think a lot of people need to know. Just to kind of like look at a lot of these powers to understand. Because it's like with this, if you didn't know why Gray's powers all come, like Gray's just general baseline abilities of Ice Bank, and how all his journey and his encounters have led to where he's at now, it'd be really, it just like he's just making these abilities on the spot. It's like, it'd be like kind of crazy, like how is he doing this? So like this guy can, if you don't have the context of everything that builds up to it, and you don't understand how his powers work, it's just going to be something crazy. But if you know what got how he got to this point, it just all makes sense of just the encounters that he's gone through and the different experiences that have shown that Gray has been really advancing in this area of where if he sees an ability, he's able to, in a straight ice ability or cold ability, he can just see it and he can learn it, and he can experience something enough with his devil sling, and he can adapt to it and then become immune to it. He can, like, because the other thing with Hakune and with Raj, he was able to handle their illusions and then get through those, both a fire one and an ice one, and he was able to gain a technique that he didn't actually experience. He just saw in an illusion in his mind. So when you have him here, and they're saying like, oh, he's trying to turn ice into something, but Gray isn't using ice. He's just directly applying cold to the air, and they're like, oh, okay, he's using, he's combining his devil slaying with it. It's like if he's using, because think about it like this. It would be kind of like how Goku has the Super Saiyan Blue and the Kaioken, combined on top of each other. But it's not like they make a new form. He's just having them stacked on top of it. That's not what Gray's doing. Gray directly says no. He's like saying he made Devil Slayer magic. So it's what Gray did. And I wish we would get a flashback with Silver at some point and see where Devil Slaying magic started. Was he the first one? Did he invent it? Was he the first Ice Devil Slayer, and maybe there's another couple Devil Slayers, and he went and figured out where he figured out where to go, and it came from, but he was the first Ice one or something. But Gray directly makes a new type of Devil Slayer magic, and that's what he's saying here. He's not saying like I made a new type of Devil Slayer magic technique. Gray, and I wish that we got a name for it in this chapter just to kind of make it a little bit easier. But when the glittering ice is an attack, what Gray is like saying he's done is he's become like it'd be a blizzard devil or a cold devil slayer, because he's got this black ice, and you have to think about it like this too. The way that the Slayer magic works, you are using the type of that attribute of that creature. Like you are partially becoming this and using their abilities. It's not like you're just using the abilities directly. It's because you are changing your body composition and taking on the form of this creature that uses this ability naturally. Like with Natsu being a fire dragon, he's using dragon fire. He's in size and body composition and whatnot are dragon like Grays, using ice devil abilities and making this black ice. And that's the thing too, is he didn't make an ice attack and then rush him. He just directly applied the cold, and the ice just formed onto Vierz, and then Gray goes and just does this massive attack and then goes and smashes into him and goes and just hard fist punches him down. And again, I think this was great because Mishima himself said that Gray was equal to Natsu, and he looks at him like that. And it was just hard for the standpoint of experience it from a viewer because of how long it was. It's like you're seeing every time that Gray would fight, Gray would win these matches, but he would win in a new kind of crazy way. Because with Elentier, we know that he wasn't going to keep that level of just easy back magic, because they're going back to Earthland and they're not going to have Elentier's magic. I'm always going to use that for the realm just because it's easier, because Earthland, Elentier, Edelus. I'm not going to go Ishgar, and that is the continent. But we have, just for him, we have this display now where Gray, as long as he can figure out a new way to implement his ice and his cold, he can just invent things on the spot and just keep going. And again, I'm hoping he does it at some point. If somehow this clip gets to Mishima or Ada, just the 5 second, they just click it by accident, it was in their algorithm, and they accidentally press the space bar and it goes this bit. Have Gray think of Laxus, and please give him cold bolts of lightning. Think of you just thinking Laxus, it'd be really cool if I did that with the cold. I don't want him throwing icicles. I don't want him throwing. I want it to be a raw cold. If you saw the anime, it would just look like this, like it almost hurt your eyes a little bit. It'd be like gray, hazy, maybe a little bit of like black, purple in there, and he just chucks it, and it's just there's no sound. It's not like a lightning bolt, like it would just be something that like it hits, goes, and then it freezes, kind of like how Super Freeze Arrow and like Icebringer, how they even though it's a much smaller like arrow or like a slash, it creates a bunch of ice, but it would be silent. It would be pretty much, you would just hear that quiet sound of what would be like a gust of the winter breeze like going through the woods, like a big gust of air. Something just badass like that would be such a cool way to give Gray a win, where it like to give one of those moments where the music cuts off and the bad you have one of those guys where it's like maybe I don't know, Lekka, maybe I'd have to think of maybe one of the Erasion sex. I have a whole theory of like a really cool thing for Gray with that if we ever get to it, but just one of those music drops where it stops right when Gray throws it, and it's just it ends, and the bad guy thinks that whoever he's fighting, whatever bad guy it is, he's just like, oh, what kind of, it's like with Byakuya, like you get Ichigo's Bankai for this time, like what is that pathetic final attack? Like, why is it you just have a small blade and they're gonna look at Gray like you just have this, what looks to be the size of a two rulers. You got two rulers you're trying to glue together to have a lightsaber. But I don't know, I thought it was a really sick display, and I knew that once it was shown to Lacrima, like they lost power, I knew that was going to be an option for Gray to win the fight, to where it was going to set him up to again be in this area to where like Natsu is, to where the Dark Dragon Slayer Knights are, to Gray, or not Gray, sorry, Laxus, to Jalal. Well, you have these characters that are in this area. I'm still hoping we get like one bonus character for Diablos, like the Georg's actual son, and he comes back and he's like one character that was between them, kind of like their Laxus, and he's just an additional character that we didn't know about. I think it'd be really cool, and he's mad about Georg. Maybe we'll get something cool like that. I don't know. We haven't barely got to hang out with Diablo, so we don't know if they would ever mention something like that, because I feel like it'd be kind of awkward. But as it were, Gray did fantastic in this fight. I think it was a very cool, just one, showing Vierz' character, having him just let Gray like go back and forth between them. I'm hoping again that because they don't just kill him and then leave, or like we get like an implementation or, of a random ruthless Gray or a off-screen seeming murder where they take him out. No, that's not what happens. Like Gray faces him off. He decides to kind of go for the crazy move where he makes the black ice, glittering ice as he calls it. I'm wondering if it's got a different name in the Japanese, and it's just the way that it's translated officially. If he had some, it has more of a sinister name into it. I really like it because I would imagine it just looks like snow, maybe. Like because I can't tell if it's supposed to be one of those effects where it's the magic. This is actually what I think it is. I think it'd be one of those things where it's like you have because I don't think it's supposed to be like snow, but I think it's supposed to be similar-ish to how you have magic that looks like snow on Giltina, like we had at the very start of 100 Years Quest. But we have that here, so it's just straight, his magic just touches him and it turns to black ice. And I looked into it because they talked about it, and I think this is just important to mention, is when Gray goes to do it and Gray defeats human form Vierz, you see some of his gold actually shatter, and Celine and Wendy both comment on it. And Celine mentions, because it's Wendy's the one that directly says that that even Natsu couldn't break his scales. But again, that's not the same thing 100%, because Natsu fought dragon form Vierz, Gray fought human form Vierz. We didn't have Natsu fight if Natsu was only fighting human form Vierz, I think Natsu actually would have been fine in that fight. But Vierz didn't want to mess around with Natsu. He wanted to just get rid of him. He was very hostile. Whereas with Gray, he stayed in the state of being in his human form and giving Gray the opportunity to fight him. Again, I'm hoping that because we don't have them like kill him and his body doesn't disappear, so he's gonna come back in his dragon form and he likes Gray and maybe he's going to be the one that so I'm hoping that he's going to be one of those characters that is kind of like not aligned in any way, and maybe Gray can turn him into an ally. And it, because I have my fingers crossed in the hopes that we're going to get like some big side clash. And if Dogromag is actually alive because of all this, we would need Vierz to even it out, because you would have Dogromag, because I think Igni is the only one that logically would be a little bit stronger than the other dragon gods at this point. There has to be something probably with Ignia, because Ignia is the one that's a crazy threat. Because the other dragon gods, for the most part, except for Alderaan, seem to keep to themselves and be willing to keep to themselves. Ignia is the only one Ignia and Alderaan are the only ones that seem to be actively ready for violence. But I think it'd be really cool if we could kind of have that and balance it out, and have Vierz be not like an enemy, but he's not an ally, but we get him over time, and we have something like with him and Gray where they kind of hang out. But as it were, like I was saying, Gray shattering the scales on him, very interesting wording, because like they say like metal in the translation. This is 100% because for whatever reason the official translations keep calling Vierz a metal dragon, even though in all the other translations, I think it's like in every other official translation and in the Japanese, every single time it's gold. And obviously all his powers are gold, and his is like all his colors and stuff are gold. So it's like it makes no sense like she says metal here, because it's not like fire and then you have like a hellfire dragon. No, this is supposed to be specifically metal and gold. Again, it's like ice and water. But as it is, gold being theoretically shattered by ice would mean that Gray would have to be at absolute zero. And there's stuff that has been mentioned with absolute zero, with zero, you have Silver's title, you have stuff like Gray freezing fire, which is is theoretically impossible. With him freezing air and wind, it's already close to absolute zero. But here, in order to freeze and shatter gold in the way that it's described, it's like he would have to be absolute zero, which makes sense in the way that Natsu's fire is getting to the point where it ignores laws of physics and is able to burn concepts. If Gray's ice is able to do similar things, especially if Gray's getting into his broken endgame power. But I don't know. I'm so stoked to see where he applies this again later. And there's also, I want to see if we get anything more of this, because Gray didn't have this in full on his body until he started channeling this power. Because if you go back and look at the chat, this is something I want to mention. Gray had his Devil Slayer side on there, but once Gray started to advance, he had like white, or it's either white or like a light blue or something on the opposite side of his face and his arm. And so he had like a dual types where he had part black and part ice. So I would assume that is the side of him that he's going like whole, like in this blizzard or raw cold, because he has it like the whole time as he goes throughout the fight. And I think it stays until the form, like he takes out a form. Yeah, until he goes out of it. So I assume this is like the new form where he is half frozen while he's like this. I think that would be really cool. But after that point, Selene takes everyone away and just meets up with Mercphobia. I'm very curious as with Merc, if he's saying that, it's like, oh, I can't fight anymore, or, but my will is to humanity. If he's subconsciously like keeping himself from fighting because he wants to kind of stay out of this. And Selene, when she's like, you have to, fighting doesn't require your power, it requires your will, she's aware of it. Because I'm expecting at some point we're going to have an all dragon gods clash, maybe everybody against Ignia, because it may only make sense to me that Ignia is going to be the one that really takes a step above all the other ones once we get to the crazier portions later on at the end of his arc. But for now, all the dragon gods are going to have to like convene and pick sides. Because if Alderaan if Alderaan stayed dead, it'd be a little different. But like he was destroyed and then brought back for this and then destroyed again, but then seemingly they didn't do it right, so he got back up. Still very curious as to what's going to happen with that. Alderaan is like such a weird wrench into like what I thought was going to happen after it was like, okay, well, that was sad that he got off screen, but it's like I got Zero, but I got to keep Zero and Alderaan, it seems. So we just gotta wait to figure out where that whole goes. Because there's only gonna be so many times where it's like it laid out a rabbit hole, and you have to be like, do I wait and just see how it plays out, or am I gonna have to keep spinning down this thing every single time a chapter comes out until I get it answered? But as it were, I am interested that Natsu is going over to where Urza and Wed are. I would like Natsu to do something to kind of get Urza out of there, because Urza, here's the thing. Also, a new Urza outfit, it's a really cool one. It's just like, it's pretty standard. It doesn't do anything extra. Like, Urza has these like cool shoulder pads and like gauntlets. He's got like a cool like armored dress and like a like, you know, just a basic kind of breastplate looking thing. I like her double-sided spear though. It looks cool. I don't know exactly what kind of weapon that is, what it would be called. But like he needs to get her out of there. He needs to get, like, if Natsu is against Wed, I would be much more willing to see, because it's like, obviously, like, strength wise, I think Natsu is in a better place, but also just ability wise, you know, he's gonna be able to eat the fire, and he's gonna be able to just kind of a counter on him. I really would like it if it's like Natsu and Urza versus Wed for a minute, and then at the same time, it's like give them a fight, and then the other members of Fire and Flame show up, so they have to leave. Because I want Urza to defeat Wed 1v1, but I don't want it to be, I don't think that she's gonna do it now anytime soon. I really see a lot of what's happening as setup for the future, because with Wendy, like, we have Wendy and Celine. So Wendy and Celine's situation was very oddly set up, because just out of all the dragon gods, it seems like all of them have a pairing for a reason. Lucy with Mercphobia going there to help him, she gets the key. Natsu is going to Ignia. Natsu has this whole thing with Bestia's fire being special and being able to unlock, you know, part of his hidden abilities. Gray with Vierz, Gray just had this whole advancement in his powers and stuff, and seemingly Vierz has have some form of interest in Gray, and Wendy has Celine. So, and Alderaan is the one that apparently is unloved. Just leave Alderaan alone. Apparently, Mishima. He'll go with Happy. Maybe he'll be with Zero, and that's the commentary on that one. Because Urza's like, yeah, I'm going over here instead. Wed is my guy. I don't have time for any dragon gods. But with Wendy, I'm so curious as to what Celine can do and what Celine could advance with Wendy's abilities. So I can see so many like clear-cut ones. With Urza though, Urza has to get something along the lines of, I think, either I think the best thing would be some like cool ancient sword, and then getting a custom armor made for her so she's able to go in a fight with like a degree of both. Something of the past that, that no one's ever been able to wield until today, and then something made for her to wear that, maybe Jalal brought some cool special metal and materials, and he's like, Urza, I had this custom made for you, and it's kind of like, she's has some weapon of the past of the war that her mother was in. Well, I guess she has the Belsarion sword. Like, maybe like she gets a custom one made with that and gets an armor from before. I don't know. Either way, it's something in combination of those lines for Urza. Like, hers is like the most basic for like a sword person. Like, you have to, those are like the easiest options. You either get them some form of weapon from Legend, or a weapon crafted just for them, and it's perfect for them, and that's how they're getting, like, that's how Haru got Reveled, and it's such an easy direct pathway for both of them. It's the best one. It's so easy. Get that for something for Urza. With Gray though, I'm hoping Gray will have another fight soon, not like right away. I'm kind of curious as to what we're gonna have though, coming like after this for any of the battles. I'm expecting actually we get back to the Erasion Face fights, because Gray's fight is concluded, Wendy's fight's concluded because Wendy and Celine didn't really have too much of a deep fight. Mercphobia and Lucy was concluded a while ago. Ignia bowed out. He's like, got something else going on. He said, I don't have time for you guys. Bestie, get this bitch. And flew off to go figure out, I assume, Dogremag or something's going on. And Alderaan is, I don't really know what Alderaan's plan is going on. Again, he's the one that's going to be really weird. But as it were, everyone seemingly to me has a direction that I think is going to be really solid. It just depends on one for Gray, where his next opponents are, and where we're gonna see just how he takes, like it's one of those things that's like, you get a new power, what is the next fight going to be for you? Are you able just to whip this out already? Is your base power going to have grown so much that, you know, you're going to be way more surprising in the next fight, to where it's like, oh well, Gray doing this, it's one of those, you always have to think about this when a character has some form of boost or upgrade, is does it affect their core of how their power is? So not only are they going to be stronger, but how they are in their everyday, kind of like the way that they kind of swing their base power around, is it going to be way more like impactful, to where in the next fight where you're like, okay, well, maybe this will be like a 50% level and it's like a 20% level, and you're like, damn, I kind of underestimated the main character for a second, or like this character in the cast or whatever character. You know, I know some people have always thought that, and the time skips are the easiest one, but it's always when you have like a character in a shorter term event where it's like just a boost. I think kind of like Natsu versus Aragorn in the anime, where he fought Aragorn again, and Aragorn had like a very short period of time where he fought him in that scene in the Erasion Caesark, and, you know, going up to Nirvana, like very short fight, but still a little bit of a fight. Yeah, kind of like in that situation, because that's, I don't know. We'll see. This depends. Leica, I'm hoping Leica's a good fight, because Leica's really cool and interesting, and I really want to know what's different about his fire. And really, I'm hoping Gray does something with all these demons running around. But like I said, I've been moving around on a lot of stuff in this general video for topic, just because I think there's a lot to look at this video for both the, like, Gray is really cementing, like I said, and this is one of the things I want to close on. Gray is really cementing a lot of the progress that the characters are showing set up, because, like, again, Natsu with Bestia, going over to Eater Fire at some point, Lucy getting the Mercphobia key, and the whole fact that, you know, one of the things I don't think people talk about too much is, with not needing keys, like in that whole concept, could she just summon the Celestial Spirit King without the drawback? That's a high possibility. Because it's not like it's impossible to do it. Like, Lucy's done it before. Like, she called the Celestial Spirit King before. So as now, could she do something like that in a battle when she gets strong enough and she doesn't need a key? She doesn't have to break a key to do it. That's just a lower level emergency way to do it. Maybe. And then, you know, you have all these ways with, like, enchanting, just general dragon slaying magic for Wendy, Urza's weapons. You know, there's a lot of myriad ways that, like, a swords person and, you know, somebody whose armor has a lot of effects on them can advance. Again, I'm really hyped to see what Gray's next kind of encounter is going to be like. But as it were, everyone's looking really good. I think everyone's powers and everyone's kind of just way that they've moved in, and that, like, just getting upgrades recently and getting hype and whatnot built up for what is to come for them. The only one that, again, is Urza kinda now, but like Urza's, again, I think is the easiest, because Urza has the most direct opponent that you know that she's gonna be able to defeat. It's just how, because Natsu's is the main arc boss. It's completely different. Not even a main arc boss, like the whole 100 Years quest boss. With Ignia, as far as we know, unless somebody pops up that's a bigger, I'm actually now going to be the main villain of 100 Years quest. Ignia is the most logical one. Everyone else has, like, opponents you can see as and ways that they can grow that is within the confines of not being at, like, literally the final fight. Whereas Wed is going to be close, but Urza is contending with him already, and she is now in her second fight. And one thing in this chapter 2, just to mention, Wed is unscathed. He doesn't look like he has any scratches or anything on him. Urza's not, like, you know, down for the count. She's on, you know, 20% running on fumes. She's just a little bit scuffed. She's a little bit damaged, but at the same time, it's like, I don't see her winning that fight. I really don't see her winning in that match right now. So yeah, so this was a really solid chapter for Gray. I was really, really happy to see that just Gray in general, to get past all the people saying he wasn't going to get anything cool, any big fights, or like he's just getting side people and like counter ability matches for a while. So now he's got a really big match that shows that he is at the level. Again, this isn't Vierz at full power. This is human form, but human, meaning that one of the human form dragon gods means you are on level with people again like Suzaku and like Natsu, you know, Laxus. Gray is in this level, so you can't say Gray has one of the best feats now in because he did it in a 1v1 fight with Celine and Suzaku. It's a little bit more impressive than that. Natsu versus Dogromag is a little different because like him and Suzaku showed that together they were their unison raid was the bar at Dragon God level, the lowest point of Dragon God level, whereas Celine and the other Dragon Gods are much stronger, but 1v1 they could have defeated human form Celine. So now Gray is in this same category as well. So fantastic to see that for him, and just to see where he's at. Also, again, and you can see a little bit in this one too. Look at his other shoulder. It's like partially white. I don't think that's just like, oh, from the cold. I think that's just from using this ability. So I'm wondering if he progresses this form, he's going to have half of his body frozen over an ice and half of his body with the black Devil Slayer mark. So anyway, other than that, comment below, tell me your thoughts about this chapter, and if you were happy about Gray and Gray's new power upgrade. I'd like to hear about it in the comments. But other than that, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. And I'm gonna do a video soon too. I'll probably do it today. It'll come out like tomorrow or something. Just again talking about Gray's new abilities. I might take a couple days because I want to reread a couple chapters, and we'll put that out between now and the next bit. Because I would assume too, and this is, I guess it's not really something to. It's something just to talk about the chapter. It's not something I need to go into discussion with to close out. Is that we're probably going to be in a couple chapters, like maybe another chapter or two, of calmness, calm before some chaos, unless we get back to the Rascon States fights, which I'll do a video too on those. I gotta do just at least one. I don't like the only person I really see beating. Oh, my dog is moving around. The only person I really see winning his fight would be Cobra, and I think Cobra would win in a second round match where he has to go and figure out, like, he has like a moment outside, he's able to figure out how he lost, advanced, and come back and re-challenge his opponent, whereas like everybody else I feel like is gonna have to fight a different person. Like, get Hot Eye and Racer out of there, put Mira Jane in there, please. Anyway, other than that, I'll talk to you guys in the next one.